Wrong glasses. There's always something. Those of you who get here early, know what's going on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Oh my gosh, nothing funny today. We're going to dive right into this. This is like a groundbreaking article. For me, I've been following digital marketing for 26 years or something. You know, back in the day, I was like the guy to call for catalog and direct mail and consulting, marketing consulting, and all kinds of stuff, business valuation. And along came the internet, and businesses were jumping up, becoming $100 million enterprises out of thin air with no experience whatsoever because they realized that it was a wonderful environment for claiming things that couldn't be verified. It's just wonderful. It's it's almost beyond words. So anyway, in that world, I thought, people will care. People will want to know for sure. People will not abandon mail because there's so many benefits. And I was wrong. The truth is that digital swept through like a tsunami and pretty much killed everybody in its path that didn't go along with the flow. Good metaphor there, I think. And I continued to fight for mail this whole time, and much to my dismay, and picked up work where I could, basically. Went into some other industries, had some other patents, started some other businesses, but always thought, someday the covers will get pulled off and people will realize what's not happening. It's just starting. There's a few drops coming through the dam or the dike, and they've got their fingers in it. But this article by Dr. Fu, I wrote to him this morning. I hope that he can come on the show, and I hope I can work with him because this is what direct marketing is about. Direct marketing is knowing what's working for sure, knowing something for certain. If you go back to Claude Hopkins' book, scientificadvertising.com, you can get a free copy. It has nothing to do with me. I don't get any money for it. You go back and you realize that people had a good foundation. There's no reason why advertising dollars are wasted. It's just the laziness of the advertisers who don't really want to know. And digital has capitalized on this. I had no idea. I talk about digital fraud and how half your money is going to fake analytics and fake clicks, but I didn't understand how it worked. So hang on with me and let's dig in a little bit to Dr. Fu's excellent article in Forbes magazine. Okay, so it's not just fly by night. Okay, and here we go. The illusion of digital marketing is not marketing. And I highly recommend that you subscribe to the WDMA. Go to WDMA.org, join, and you can get a free subscription and you get the show notes. This article deserves that on its own. He says half of every dollar you spend buying low-cost ads from tech vendors goes into their pockets instead of showing ads. This 50% ad tech tax, it's a hard one to say, 50% tech tax doesn't even show up on Excel spreadsheets, which tell you how much you spent, or how many impressions you got, reach, or what prices you paid, cost efficiency, cost per thousand really, and what click-through rates you got, performance. That was by design. So you wouldn't find out and complain. They wanted to keep you spending your ad dollars. Did you hear that? Now I want you to keep mailing, But what really undermined mail was not the effectiveness of digital, heaven forbid. It was the simplicity of buying advertising. You just go to Google and say, put this ad on the ad network, and we'll be in the auctions, and place it whatever in, and you can put some controls on it, and you're done. It's nothing like mail where you got to buy paper if you got a good run length, or if you want to save some money. You got to work with the postal service. You got to work with the printer on formatting. There's just all kinds of work, and you got to do it 3 months in advance. That's about right. So merge, purge, list hygiene, all kinds of stuff to make sure your piece gets delivered. Not digital. Just create it, send it off to Google. Okay, so they wanted to keep you spending. But mobile ad tech vendors, according to Uber's successful lawsuit, spun up more BS to Uber, falsified placement reports to cover their tracks, and in some cases fabricated reports even though no ads were run, and they kept all the money. It's not all malicious, but it is clever. So this article is not about fraud, it's about the mechanics of programmatic advertising. The illusion of digital marketing, lots of stuff happening when no marketing is taking place at all. Do you understand the profundity of this article? Dr. Fu, I checked this, he sent me the pronunciation. There's a setting on LinkedIn that you can, like mine, right up by your name, you can make a recording on your phone to tell people how to pronounce your name by you. And so Dr. Fu, but wrote me, F-O-O, it's pronounced that way. So anyway, how does this all work? How can they have so much going on and so little happening? Well, real-time bidding, RTB, and I thank you, Dr. Who, Dr. Who, that's a guy in England. Dr. Fu, that's another way you could say it, like Doctor Who. Dr. Fu, that's kind of cool. I'd never forget that. Real-time bidding is the ad tech equivalent of Wall Street, where advertisers and publishers are matched up to buy and sell ad impressions respectively. An ad opportunity is created when the web page is downloaded, i.e. a user, a consumer, visits the page. Okay, so you go click on a page, and when you click on a page, people think the internet is real time or the internet is somehow in the cloud. No, what happens is when you click a link, you send that link message along with information about your browser and some other things. You send that message back to the site that you're looking at. That site, with maybe tracking and other things, but maybe not. Or maybe it's an internal link. That link sends a message to a server, a real server in a real location on Earth, not in a cloud, no matter what you think. And that server then knows, with that message, to send back a format, images, and text, and that sort of thing. And maybe Java code and some other stuff. But basically, that's how the internet was built, and it's still working about that same way. Okay, now, in addition, that web page that you've just been sent, it's in a bunch of components coming through the wires and through the air. That set of stuff that the server knows all goes together. I used to build these by hand before there was even what you see is what you get. Hard-coded HTML, that's what I used to do. Anyway, that server also can send a link to an ad auction and say, well, we've got this spot up here in the banner, or we've got this spot in the middle of the article that this person has asked for, and we'd like you to send us whatever goes in there. Okay, and as a page developer, you put a code on that space, that place where that holds an image, and you say, check with this link as soon as somebody requests this page. It's fairly straightforward. I understand that part. I built lots of pages, believe it or not. You think I'm just a catalog junk mail expert. There's plenty of junk around. Anyway, so that creates this ad opportunity. Yeah, the opportunity is put up for auction by sending a bid request to an ad exchange. Multiple buyers bid on that opportunity, and the winner of that auction gets the right to serve an ad. Okay, so now your page, that website page, sends a request, says, I've got a person here, I've got somebody real, which may not be the case. It might be a bot clicking around on that website. And that's another part of fraud, which we're not going to cover today. But assuming it's a real person, you clicked a link, now that page sends another request off. And, the components of pages can come from all over the place. Like if you embed a YouTube video in the page as a creator, it'll send a request to YouTube and it'll come in. And you might notice that those sometimes come in slower, especially if you're watching something on a mobile phone or something like that, or on wireless, out in the wilderness. That's the wilderness is where there's where there's no high-speed wireless. Anyway, so that's what's going on. So then that server that's requested an ad says, I got a user here. Somebody's loading this page. Which ad would like this to be put in front of this user? And these ads, essentially, which are all pre-programmed, put up their ads and say 555-666-777. And after a certain amount of time, which is milliseconds, this happens 10 to 20 million times a second in the real world. This auction is going on. When you click a page, it's deciding what ad you'll see. Okay? And I saw an article. I don't think I saved it for tomorrow, but it was how the boomers are coming to the internet finally. Yeah, right. I was a system operator, a SysOp they used to call them, in the mid-'80s. In the mid-'80s, on one of the largest bulletin boards in the world. And we talked about marketing there. Where were you in the mid-'80s? I was on the precursor to the internet. I built my first web page in 1995. Did you get on the internet in 1995? I doubt it. I actually saw a demo in 1994 before it was public. A tour of the Louvre. Anyway, 10 to 20, an estimated 10 trillion auctions happen every week, 10 to 20 million per second. When a bid is won, a call is made to the ad buyer's server that sends the ad into the slot. All of this works in theory, but you have to consider the enormous amount of computation and bandwidth needed for it to work in reality. This has certainly driven the adoption of more and more powerful computers, faster and faster network connections. But what if, getting more concrete, what if the bid were won but no ad was served? What if the ad was served but never arrived because of network latency, especially on mobile devices? What if it did arrive but never got rendered? Okay, so when an ad comes to your user, it has to get put back together. Every little bit of that is coming not necessarily in one big file, but in pieces. And you've noticed sometimes your computer gets a page and it's all jumbled up, and then it maybe clears up. That's because the pieces are arriving at a different rate. It doesn't start with the first piece. It sends piece, and they come on whatever. And they all take multiple paths. It's one of the things that makes the internet so robust. There's no like one big clump that comes. Okay? Well, advertising speculators, these auction guys, paid for all that for years. But what was being counted and what was being paid for? This is a double-click documentation hunk that shows that most of these problems were hidden for years in the fine print, definitions and standards, and the technical details no one even knew to ask about. No one even knew to ask about. I thought about it. Andrew Ettinger thought about it. For example, for years, DoubleClick, the world's largest ad server owned by Google, counted ads when they were served without any proof that the ad ever arrived in the browser to be shown. Imagine if you put something in the mail. Let's bring this down to earth. Bring something in the mail, and We didn't know if it arrived. Now there's services for that. And there are in mass media. There's ad logging services, ad tracking services that make sure your ads get run. But in digital, it's so fragmented, no one can do it. I mean, there's no good way to do it. Not a way that's any more trustworthy than Google. But in the postal world, we go to a lot of that upfront trouble to make sure it's a good address, to make sure there's a person there, to make sure that it gets delivered, to make sure that it goes to a decision maker, that they look at it, there's engagement. It's all the way through the process, which is why mail is the most cutting edge media in the world. Medium, I guess. I always get that mixed up. Mail is the most cutting edge medium in the world. And if you don't know why, go down to wdma.org/join if you want to shortcut it, and join up. And in the members only area, we've got the latest webinar. I believe it's up there. But if it isn't, there's plenty that are. Join for a month if you just want to check us out. I think it's about $20 a month. So join for a month. That's the equivalent of the cost of the webinar if you were a non-member. Join for a month. The crazy computer might send you another bill. I have a hard time stopping that computer, but I can tell you that if you talk to me, we'll give it a go. I don't really want to stop it. I want you to keep on going. But go to that latest webinar, and it will explain why mail is the most cutting-edge medium of all else in the world. It's not digital. Digital's a mess. Okay, so in October of 2019, DoubleClick changed from served impressions to downloaded impressions. That means that they said, okay, well, if we try to send it and no browser responds, or it doesn't seem like it got there, we'll not charge you for it. Before that, they didn't care. They just said, well, we sent it. It's not our fault it didn't arrive. Blame FedEx or something. Anyway, nowhere else in the world can you just claim credit for it. It shipped. No tracking, no nothing. It shipped, so we're charging you. FOB our site. Okay, so previously the metrics were based on served impressions. Now, here's the trouble. The fine print doesn't reveal that downloaded doesn't even mean downloaded. Viewability. What is viewability? And I hate to be going so long, but this is something we all need to hear. Okay, if 50% of the pixels were visible for 1 second, the ad would be considered viewable. Knock out 50% of the pixels in an image and see how it looks. Especially if it's random and you can't tell which pieces are what. And does the 1 second start after it hits 50%? How would it know? It doesn't know what's happening on your browser. There's no way that a server out there can know what you're seeing on your browser. Got that? There's just too many variables. Okay? So then media agencies seized the opportunity and they said, well, we're only going to use 100% viewable ads. This is a great story. It gets better. It gets worse and worse. Okay? They said, we're only going to charge you for 100%, or we're only going to buy 100% viewable ads. And they instantly knocked out 1/3 of the ad inventory of the good publishers. Okay, so here's a simple example. If a mainstream publisher had 3 ads on the page and 2 of them were above the fold, okay, so 2 of them come up right away with the load of the page. Now, that's a hard thing to decide because, is it landscape or is it portrait? Is it a little screen or is it a big screen? This stuff all matters, but let's say it knows that because your browser does send it. Okay? There's 2 of them on the immediately loaded page. There's another one down here. Okay? So that one is not recognized by the good publishers as viewable. Bang. It's not because it didn't load. It's because you didn't scroll yet. Okay, when you scroll, it becomes viewable, but there's a latency there in the user experience. Okay, so two of the above fold and one below, and the agencies would not bid on the 1/3 of the publisher's inventory because it was below the fold. Now, here's the problem. The ad dollars that the advertiser was paying the agency still had to get spent. There's a timeliness of advertising, right? The big advertisers plan their ads well in advance, putting them in where they want, paying a premium price for making sure they get viewed. The closer you get to the time of the broadcast, if you will, or the time of now, the immediate, supposedly real-time performance of the internet, oftentimes the lower you have to pay because maybe not as many people are buying it, which led to this low price auction concept, the real-time auction, where we'll figure out what ads are best, we'll serve it to the place real time, so when people go to a car dealership, or better yet, when people go to Sports Illustrated, but they've been to a car dealership site, or they've been to some kind of automotive site, we'll send them your ad for cars. Or if they went to an apparel site and we track you with the third-party cookies, we'll send them your ad for sportswear or whatever it is. Okay, that's the sort of in concept how it's supposed to work. But the problem is they need to spend the money. So what happens? So they turn to programmatic ad exchanges so they could still buy ads, very inexpensive ads that were guaranteed viewable because they're coming right now while somebody's on that page. Guess who has, here's the punchline, guess who has 100% viewable ads 100% of the time? Fake sites. And the ones who cheat by falsifying viewability measurements, deliberately mislabeling them as it's like taking rotten apples that could not be sold and deliberately mislabeling them as fresh apples so they could be sold. Even mainstream publishers like Newsweek succumbed to the temptation to fake viewability measurements. The lack of knowledge of the media agencies caused marketers to be exposed to more fraudulent and fake ad sales, even though viewability looked good on paper. Did anyone, human or bot, even look at the ad? A whole nother question. For years, banner blindness studies have shown that eye tracking analysis that humans avoid the top and right sides of most web pages because they know that's where the ads are. Okay? So more and more websites stuck ads right in the middle of the content feed. So now the question is, by the time the ad loads, did I already get past it? You bet. Much of the time. I scroll fast. I cover dozens of articles a day. Okay? So by the time the auction processed above, the ad serving, downloading, and rendering of the ad, is it complete? Viewability measurements rely on signals they collect from the browser, but those signals cannot tell if a human was actually looking. See, now mail is different because mail, you have to deal with it. It's in your kitchen. It has to be looked at because you have to decide if it's important. And it could be important for a number of reasons. You know, it could be from the IRS. I tend to open those. Could be a check from my kids or a greeting card, all those things. There's always going to be some reason to look at your mail. But it could also be something like a coupon from the hardware store. I just went to the hardware store yesterday or the day before, and I bought I needed a hose fitting. That's all I needed. But if I spend $30, I get 5 off. So I wandered around. My wife dropped me off, and she went to Walgreens. My wife, don't ever do that with your husband. Luckily, they don't serve coffee. But anyway, I wandered around. I found all kinds of great stuff that I'd forgot I needed, like an updated gas spout for that old gas can I had. I love those new gas spouts if you break them and fix them. If you don't, you can't work them. They don't work. But you can fix them so they work superbly. That worked. Bought some rope, bought some fittings. Everything worked that I bought. It was a delight. My bill, $30.03 or something. I forget. Then $5 off. So, my gosh. So when you start the timer on that 1 second required to meet viewability, does it start before or after? How do you know? How would you know? What happens if there's not enough data to determine viewability? Do they assume it's viewable, or do they not report it as not reportable, not measurable, not measurable? You recognize that word? Measurable. We could measure, but we don't. We charge you anyway, like the definition of direct marketing. Here you guys are all in digital. You're all direct marketers because you're using measurable advertising. Digital is the most measurable advertising. Right. Okay. Yeah, maybe we could if we were omniscient and we were watching your screen with you, which we're not. Okay. The viewability measurements pertain to whether the ad had the opportunity to be seen, not whether anyone looked at it or not. Got it? Not with mail. This gives you the difference is light, night and day, light and dark. It's just amazing. Okay, so what? So there's 360 billion globally spent in digital. Wouldn't it be great if they had a deeper understanding? Some CMOs are indeed realizing this and taking action. For example, pausing or turning off millions of dollars of such ad spending. And eBay, Procter & Gamble, Chase, Uber, and Airbnb all tried that. And they noticed no change in business outcomes and activity. That's what Andrew Ettinger says. Turn it off. See if anything happens. See if nothing changes. See if your page views are exactly the same. Were they doing marketing or the illusion of marketing? That's clear. Okay, so run some concrete experiments for yourself. And I highly recommend that you work with a real direct marketing consultant who understands media, understands digital and the internet, and understands testing, probably with a solid direct mail background. Find a guy like that, or a girl. There's some really great women out there that do this. Pause a campaign or two that are using programmatic ad tech and see if business outcomes change. Add a campaign or two that buys real ads from real publishers with real human audiences at a much higher cost, much lower reach, much lower click-through rates. See if that drives more business outcomes than the programmatic campaigns. Make sense? Absolutely. And you know what else? If you really want to know what's going on, the medium with 100% engagement and a baked-in labeled data set so that you can use machine learning tools when you're done instead of failing at that, like 90% of the analysts do. They fail because they don't have a labeled data set, just like the University of Texas at Austin, who worked with IBM for years. It was supposed to be a $3 million project. IBM built them $60 million. Still failed. Didn't even get off the ground. Why? Because basically we have pictures of people's MRIs with cancer. We don't have a picture of the same person before they got cancer. That would be a labeled data set. We have pictures of livers without cancer, but not that person's. We just don't have enough before and afters of the same person in the same angle from the same, basically from the same system. Doesn't work. So anyway, I know this has been, because it's a deep dive, it's hard to digest. But if you're doing digital and you're not thinking about this stuff, and this is way beyond the bots and the clear fraud, this is baked into the system. Baked into the system, you don't know what's going on. So if you've got any number of customers, you need to be mailing something just to see what's going on. I urge you, find somebody to get help. WDMA is a good place to start. Have a great day. Like and share. Your friends will know you're smart. If I go like this, it actually